Next to Judge or Ohtani for AL MVP, there's been another awards debate looming for months. Harris or Strider? Welcome into BPTV, Cory McCartney and Grant McAuley with you. And Grant, who will win NL Rookie of the Year is at the center of the conversation for the Braves ahead of baseball's award week, where Max Fried and Brian Snitker are also finalists.
Yeah, it's one of the great questions we've been asking ourselves for quite a while when it became pretty apparent that when you looked at the National League's rookie class, that you had a couple of guys who were heading it up, and it was Spencer Strider and Michael Harris. Or is it Michael Harris and Spencer Strider? What order is kind of subjective, though both of these guys, I think you can make a very plain and very clear argument that for the Braves to do what they did in 2022, they needed both of them to do the kinds of things that they did that made them Rookie of the Year candidates.
Well, like they do when they announce the finalists, we're keeping it in alphabetical order for now. So let's make the case for each of the Braves finalists there. And again, we began with the most interesting debate there. Rookie of the Year, where Michael Harris II and Spencer Strider are joined by the Cardinals' Brendan Donovan. And with Harris, I mean, he was just named Baseball Digest Rookie of the Year. To me, it's the overall and everyday impact that stands out. Obviously, he was brought in for his defense, which was spectacular. Ends up hitting .297 with an .853 OPS, 19 homers, 20 steals. Produced a 4.8 Fangraphs WAR, which is tied for Dusty Baker in 1972 for the second most by any rookie position player in franchise history. And underscore the importance of his May 28th arrival, the Braves had a .468 winning percentage before his debut, which was 8th in the NL, .687 after, which was the best in the majors.
Yeah, but I mean, I hate to be the one that goes ahead and skips a couple of chapters to get to Spencer Strider. But when you look at the arrival and rotation of Strider and the arrival from Double-A of Michael Harris, I mean, these are two guys that pretty much got there at the same time. So as far as the Braves winning is concerned, I feel like both of them were answers to huge questions for Atlanta. We knew that the outfield was in a state of flux. Ronald Acuna Jr. started on the injured list. Adam Duvall was still out in center field. The corners were a complete mess between Eddie Rosario being hurt, Marcell Ozuna not being a productive player again, which is a whole nother podcast or a whole nother episode we can deal with another time. But they needed somebody to step in and try to get this outfield moving in the right direction and believe that Michael Harris would be able to hit enough to do it. But as you mentioned, the defense was supposed to be the thing that they were really tapping him in for. But man, did he ever reward them with a huge offensive season, nearly a 2020 year. You kind of have to wonder if he'd gotten the extra 40 or so games at the big league level this year, exactly where he would have finished up in terms of all of the, regular counting stats. We might be talking about Michael Harris as an MVP candidate, and he still might get some down ballot votes. So to make a long story short, the impact of Harris, it cannot be overstated how important that he was and how he became one of the Braves' best rookies since the club moved to Atlanta. But the parallel to that was what Spencer Strider was doing in rotation. The Braves still had the question in the fifth spot. It kind of became a revolving door all season long that one of the spots in rotation was always in question. But once Spencer Strider started every fifth day, it really changed the dynamic. And you look at the wins above replacement per Fangraphs and really per Baseball Reference, there is not much separating Michael Harris and Spencer Strider.
Yeah, and if Harris's season is marked by how he elevated everything around him with the lineup and obviously the defense, to me, Strider's, it's defined by the unprecedented. Obviously, the fastest to 200 strikeouts by of all time, a rookie record, 13.8 Ks per nine, the best Fangraph WAR of any Braves rookie pitcher since World War I. Everyone knew that four-seamer was coming. He threw it 67% of the time, which was more than anybody, and it didn't matter. They hit 201 against it, end of the year with a 38.3% strikeout rate. We just had never seen anything like Spencer Strider was doing on the mound for the Braves this year.
No, and it's one of the big reasons why for both of these guys, you can make a case that, hey, we want to keep them around for a long time, and both of them receive long-term contracts. That might be the biggest award that they got in the year 2022, regardless of who walks home with the Rookie of the Year trophy. But yeah, I mean, Spencer Strider just did things that, in our lifetimes, who are we thinking about? Who are we talking about here as far as rookie pitchers and these kinds of strikeouts? Kerry Wood comes to mind. Doc Gooden comes to mind. Outside of that, I mean, you're really talking about a very special and very rare type of season from a strikeout perspective. Nearly 40% strikeout rate as a starting pitcher is absolutely absurd. I mean, it's Hall of Fame level, and there's just not too many pitchers that are able to pull that kind of thing off, because then you start talking about like Randy Johnson, for example, and that's whose record he broke as fastest or fewest innings to 200 strikeouts in the season. And when you're on a list with Randy Johnson as far as making strikeout history and you're a rookie pitcher, it is tantalizing to think what could be ahead for this kid. And if he wins the Rookie of the Year as a pitcher over a position player, you won't really get any kind of argument out of me, because you have to have a historical season and perhaps an unprecedented rookie season as far as a pitcher is concerned in franchise history. And Spencer Strider checks both of those boxes.
All right, Grant, I'm going to put it to you then. Who is going to win NL Rookie of the Year?
I think Michael Harris is going to win the Rookie of the Year award, but as I just said, and I may just be repeating myself for the sake of doing it, if Spencer Strider wins, I'm not going to be surprised at all.
Yeah, I think to me, Harris's overall impact is undeniable, but I'm kind of inclined to side with history here and that kind of once in a generation kind of a season that Strider provided. He's already won the Sporting News and Players' Choice Awards as top NL rookie, and I think he's about to add another with the Baseball Writers Association Award. Meanwhile, Max Fried is a finalist for the NL Cy Young. He's joined by the Marlins, Sandy Alcantara, the Dodgers, Julio Urias. Just by his inclusion, the Braves are guaranteed for their best finish since John Smoltz was third in 2022. But Grant, what's the case for Fried and how high does he finish?
I think that Fried, it could be the runner-up, but then again, we'll see how that all breaks out. I feel like this has been Alcantara's award, and it's been feeling that way for quite some time, because when you talk about unprecedented in today's game, what Alcantara was doing in terms of the overall innings and the quality of those innings was just something nobody else in baseball was doing. So I just felt like this is going to be his award. But Max Fried did everything he needed to do as the front of the Braves rotation. I know that down the stretch, he had to deal with a couple of things. Obviously, didn't go into the playoffs the way that he wanted to. But we are talking about a regular season award here, and we're talking about somebody that year over year just continues to get better. It started in 2019 when he finally joined the rotation full-time, elevated in the shortened season of 2020, even better in 2021, and the best of Max Fried we saw again in 2022. The ERA, the winning percentage, the low walk total, and the great strikeout total for him. I mean, he just continues to be a pitcher that adds to his arsenal as well. I mean, he throws about 5 different pitches in any given start. And I think that's one of the things that's led Max Fried from becoming a fastball curveball guy to somebody who can really carve up a lineup. So I don't think he's going to be able to win this thing. Quite obviously, I think it's Alcantara's award to lose and has been for a while. But if Fried's runner-up, that would be a nice feather in his cap. But, like any award, you want to be the one that wins it. And I wouldn't put it past Max Fried in the future if he continues to build on what he's done the last 3 years.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I mean, it's Alcantara's the pick here, but I do think Fried does wind up like you second. Urias has a Fried beat an ERA, but Fried has a better FIP, fewer walks, allowed fewer home runs, has a substantially higher WAR. Yes. 5.0 to Urias is 3.2, and he threw just 10 more innings. So it's not like it's a big workload that allowed him to have a higher WAR. If he does come in second, by the way, it would be the best for a Braves since another left-hander, Tom Glavine, was runner-up to Randy Johnson in 2000. So certainly another potential nugget there on the Max Fried resume. Brian Snitker is already the winner of Manager of the Year once, doing so in 2018. He was a finalist again in 2019, didn't win, was 4th in each of the last 2 seasons. Obviously, the Braves went from 10.5 back to a 5th straight NL East crown. Snitker's back as a finalist along with the Dodgers, Dave Roberts, and the Mets, Buck Showalter. It's 3 managers, Grant, who won more than 100 games. Is Snitker going to add to his trophy case?
It's going to be interesting to see how exactly this all plays out, because if you looked at the regular season overall accomplishment, I mean, nobody accomplished more wins-wise than the Los Angeles Dodgers did, and they did so with one of the highest payrolls in baseball, again, as they do so annually. But I think that they dealt with their fair share of challenges to continue to do the things that they did this year. Meanwhile, Buck Showalter, I believe, had the highest payroll in baseball, and the Mets were a team that was really able to completely flip the script on what kind of club that they are in 2022. And I think Buck Showalter was a huge reason for that. Then you get to Brian Snitker, who, if you look at either of those 2 managers having to do the most to get himself to 100 wins, and I say himself, but I mean is his team, Brian Snitker's club was 10.5 games out of first place and under 500 heading into Memorial Day weekend, and somehow won the division, beating out one of the other managers on this list. So I think Snit's got perhaps the best case of any of the 3 when it comes to overcoming adversity, particularly inside of a season. So if he does win this thing, then I think it's well-deserved. If you're going on just the pure resume of, hey, which manager led his club to the most wins, it could be Dave Roberts. But just like Brian Snitker and just like Buck Showalter, all of these guys in the postseason went home a lot earlier. That's just not part of how the votes are tabulated.
Yeah, I think too. I mean, what the Braves had to overcome is the foundation of Snitker's case here. And from that end, I don't think you can give it to the guy who he ended up passing up in the final days of the season to win that division title. Roberts is probably the pick, though. Obviously, a franchise record, 111 wins. Doing so, as you mentioned, despite a rash of injuries to the rotation, it had a lot of underperforming mainstays in that Dodgers lineup. I'll note, since the BBWAA began awarding Manager of the Year in 1983, 2 teams have won more than 108 games, the 98 Yankees and the 2001 Mariners. Both of their managers, Joe Torre and Lou Piniella, both ended up winning Manager of the Year. So history most certainly is in Dave Roberts' corner. It's all but guaranteed the Braves are taking at least some hardware home next week with another Rookie of the Year. So make sure you stick with us all offseason long here on BPTV as we'll catch you up on all things Braves. So subscribe, turn on those notifications, and tell a friend. Also, be sure to catch us on 92.9 The Game in Atlanta on From the Diamond, also available wherever you find your podcasts. Until next time, I'm Cory McCartney. He's Grant McAuley, and we'll see you soon, Braves Country.